In the name of the Creator, Redeemer and Sanctifier. Amen. Today is, or this weekend, is Domestic and Family Violence Awareness Sunday. So we're doing it tonight. It didn't feel like a topic completely fit for messy church. So we'll do it tonight. Hence the different service, and you'll see the theme with our prayers as well. It's also why I'm not going to begin the sermon with a joke. Felt not right. As you're no doubt aware, I really enjoy listening to podcasts. I have a series of ones that I try to keep up with. I do. You can tell how well I'm doing with my exercise. The more exercise I do, the more I'm kept up with them all. One of the ones that I really enjoy from the ABC is called Global Roaming, with Hamish McDonald, Geraldine Doog, Kylie Morris and Latika Burke, each weekday. I believe it's broadcast on Radio National, if you're interested. And they cover a broad range of topics, and every now and again, usually once a week, they'll do an episode dealing with the comments and questions of the listeners, and they'll pick a couple of questions or comments to really explore, and they'll get a guest on to help them. Recently, just this past week, one of the listeners wrote in and bemoaned the focus that we all seem to have on Trump, particularly in the wake of a third assassination attempt. And their rationale, which was understandable and something I feel myself every now and again, Trump's someone who just craves attention like a child. And let's be honest, the assassination attempt didn't succeed. So ultimately it has very little to do with us. Can we just move on and leave it alone? Hamish responded to that idea that the day the American president is the subject of an attempted assassination and political violence is clearly on the rise in America, the day that is not newsworthy, it says something very deep. And it's tempting to want to be disconnected from all of that. But we know that often what happens in America ends up reflected in Australia, sadly. And so surely this is news. And we must guard against becoming so desensitised to political violence that it seems to be unimportant anymore. I thought that was a very polite way of saying, pull your head in to the listener. And I wondered how much, in reflecting on our theme tonight, how true that is in more than just the realm of political violence. How blasé have we become in hearing about domestic and family violence? How much we see it in movies or TV shows, how much we read about it in books, that we become in danger of ignoring the reality of it. Now, I don't think we're doing it because we're desensitised to it, but because we've heard so much about the statistics that it feels rather the opposite. That is, it is overwhelming. We can't seem to shift the statistics. And to be honest, the statistics sound so horrendous, and we rarely see it in our own lives or our own families, that then maybe it's not that important. Maybe the statistics aren't quite true, or maybe we can just ignore it. And I wonder how much that is going on in our society. Our first reading from Acts tonight opens up with something that should be this shocking act of violence to us. Stephen is killed, the first martyr. He is killed because, for no other reason than he proclaimed his faith in Jesus Christ. They did not want to hear from him, so they dragged him outside, they picked up stones and pummeled him to death with them. And in the midst of that horrendous act of violence, he asks God, don't hold this against them. Don't hold against them those who came at me with violence. Don't hold it against them. Then we moved on to the Gospel reading, in which Jesus prepares, I'm going before you to prepare a place for you. And it's a comforting words we had at Rex's funeral. We have them at many, many funerals. It's very comforting words, isn't it? Jesus goes to prepare a space in God's house for us, a room for us, and it's wonderfully comforting. But we're not at a funeral tonight, so we can think a little bit deeper about those words. And one of the things that occurs to me is when Jesus says he goes before us, that path that he's going before us on is through his crucifixion. It is through more events of violence and death. He goes before us through that to bring us into this place of comfort. In the events of Easter, we remember that Jesus endures violence and death before there is life. As I said, today is Domestic Violence Awareness Day. And the General Synod of the National Church set this day as a day for us as a church to think about how do we respond to domestic and family violence. The statistic that gets me every time: 1 in 3 women and 1 in 7 men will experience some form of domestic violence in their lifetime. Those statistics are expanded a bit on a poster I put up on the stand on the table as we enter, and you can read that poster fairly quickly and see some of the more expanded statistics around the violence people suffer. And sadly, we know from research commissioned by the church that those numbers, 1 in 3 and 1 in 7, are the same or worse in a faith setting. It is horrendous to me that it is worse in a church setting. As a national church, we decided, and I was part of the General Synod, and it was a great moment of pride that we were part of it, to say and vote for something to say this cannot continue. We have to take our part in ending this scourge. And we established the Family and Culture Commission to help the church, a commission of the National Church, to help every diocese and every parish grapple with family and domestic violence and ask the question, what can we do? And they've come up with a series of resources, some of which we're using tonight and some of which we will use in the coming year, to help us grapple with the question of what can we do what can I do as the priest of a parish? What can you do as the members of a parish to take your part in ending the scourge of family and domestic violence? What training do I need and can I access to make me better equipped to deal with family and domestic violence? I've undertaken some already, and what more is there for me to do? There is more. Beyond the official stuff, though, there's one that I want to highlight tonight from our readings. We can be prepared to journey with others. It's a difficult journey, but we can do it. Think about it. In the midst of his own suffering, Stephen offered God's love and forgiveness as he experienced violence. Can we offer God's love and support to those who are experiencing violence? We know there are too many stories of horrendous behaviour in the past where church people would simply be told, go back to the violent relationship, because divorce was somehow seen as so much worse than the violence they were experiencing. How are we prepared to tell people maybe divorce is the best thing that could happen to you? You are not, as a loved child of God, to continue to experience violence in your home, a place that should be safe. Jesus told us that he goes to experience all aspects of human life, including being the victim of violence. We're reminded every time we hear the words of the Eucharist that our loving Lord is a broken Lord. broken by human suffering in order to enter into human suffering. This means that he not only feels for the woman facing violence or healing from it or scarred forever by the experience of it, but that the experience of violence is drawn into the love of God. If it happens to us, it has already happened to Jesus and continues to happen to Jesus. Can we as a church stand beside those who experience that violence, not in judgment, but in solidarity and prayer with those who are abused, and tell them and show them that they are loved by God so much they should never experience or endure violence in any form? We have to guard against becoming so desensitized to violence in any form, but especially in family and domestic violence. We must guard against sweeping it under the carpet as if it doesn't happen. We must guard against pretending it's not as bad as statistics tell us because we don't see it. If we can stand strong in our faith and reach out to those suffering this violence in love and grace and be and show God's love, then we will be doing our part to end domestic and family violence. If we can pray for those who suffer from this violence, we'll be doing our part to end domestic and family violence. If we can support those who come out of a life of violence, we can be doing our part to end domestic and family violence. Together, when we all stand and say no more, we take a step towards ending this terrible thing in our community, our families and our homes. In the name of the Creator, Redeemer and Sanctifier. Amen.